My name is Ken.
And my name is Jason.
And today we're playing
Runewars.
So before we get into the actual intro part of the show that you guys are familiar with, I'd just like to show our new surroundings. This, as usual, like in all the times before, two guys and some drywall. This is probably going to change as time goes on. We're just trying out some new things. We feel this is a little bit more interesting than, say, a white wall and a terrible couch, and that terrible couch actually has been destroyed at this point, or picked up by someone else in the garbage.
I like to think of it as summarily executed.
It's more like a mercy kill, to be perfectly fair.
True.
But anyway, so we're trying out this setup. We are definitely open to comments on this setup. I'm sure you guys will be able to tell us yay or nay. Some of you might just be glad to see us, and we're actually really glad to start getting back into this as well, to be perfectly fair.
Mm-hmm.
We'd just like to announce before we actually start, because this is actually this episode is conveniently coming out just before our 60-hour board gaming marathon that we do for the Child's Play charity.
Called Boardpocalypse.
Called Boardpocalypse. This is going to be happening on February
20th, starting at noon, to February 22nd at midnight.
So that is February 20th, which is the Thursday, starting at noon, until midnight on the Saturday, the 22nd. So yeah, during that whole point in time, we all just go through sleep deprivation. Your donations actually kind of become a game that we've sort of created, wherein you can force us to actually stay awake during the point in time. So if you really hate me, which I know many of you do, you can force me to stay up for the entire 60 hours by paying really a lot of money, but absolutely every single cent of this marathon goes to the Child's Play charity. So we don't benefit from this in any way. The only thing we benefit from is sleep deprivation. And honestly, that is its own reward.
Obviously.
Yeah.
I know Ken always looks forward to it.
I look forward to it's one of my favorite times of the week. Honestly, I have always said if I could just not sleep, I wouldn't. If I didn't have to sleep, I just probably wouldn't. I'd get so much more done if I didn't have to sleep all the time. God, even if it shaved like the last 10 years off my life or something, I wouldn't even mind.
Anyway, if you would like to join us for the Boardpocalypse Marathon, then please tune in to the website below. Just right there. And again, that starts February 20th at noon. So hopefully we'll see some of you online then.
Yeah, it'll be nice. We'll have a chat and everything. You'll be able to chat to us. You'll be able to tell us how much you hate/love us. You'll also be able to yell at us for not having videos and basically just disappearing for an entire year, with the exception of Jason, who's been doing some cool stuff with his Malifaux tutorials and reviews.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, on to the game.
On to the game. So, Runewars, as we have it here, is actually a republish by Fantasy Flight Games that was put out in 2010? 2010.
Yep. It's actually a re-implementation of a game called Battle Mist, which was created by Fantasy Flight Games in 1998, I believe it is.
Man, it's hard to think that they've been actually around this long.
They're one of the big companies.
They are one of the big ones,
there. And it was redesigned by Corey Knizia. And again, I apologize if I butchered that name. It's probable.
It's customary for us to butcher names.
Mm-hmm.
So, Fantasy Flight is doing this really interesting thing, and we've touched on this with the Arkham Files, all of the different Lovecraftian games that they're doing right now. But this game, like all of their fantasy-type games right now, is taking place in the world of Terranoth. So each player controls a faction that is themed in a particular way. Forces of good and evil, perhaps neutrality as well.
No.
Forces of neutrality!
There is no neutralness.
Okay, fine. But it all takes place in the world of Terranoth, which is also where their reprint of Dungeon Quest, their Descent series, And can you think of any other games that they have?
Runebound, which I think is still around.
Okay, yeah.
Or at least they haven't reprinted in a while, so
okay.
I don't know. Regardless, the point of this game is to use your armies to gain control of the powerful dragon runes. And the person who can claim 6 of those first is the winner.
Now, as we're going through this review, I believe Jason's going to be handling the bulk of this, because he's way more familiar with this game than I am. And he is going to be making notes in the changes of gameplay between this edition and the revised edition that was put out in, I want to say, 2012?
It's been pretty recent. I don't know the exact time.
Okay, yeah. Well, it wasn't that long ago, but there is a reprint of this game, and they have made some changes. Some changes sadder and more notable than others, unfortunately. Good night, my sweet prince.
So first, let's go over the components for Runewars. These are examples of all of the miniatures of the game. So back here we have the neutral units, and these are beastmen, dragons, giants, hellhounds, razorwings, and sorcerers. Over here we have the undead units, so dark knights, necromancers, reanimates, and skeleton archers. These are the elven units, so we have archers, and Pegasus riders, sorceresses, and warriors. The humans are over here, so we have bowmen, footmen, knights, and siege engines. These are the Uthuk, which are kind of the demon units, and we have berserkers, chaos lords, flesh rippers, and warlocks. And finally, these are just a few of the hero minis. There are actually quite a few, one for each hero. I'm not going to show them all, but those are a few examples. So these are some examples of the tokens in the game. First of all, the big one here, this is one of the player boards. So you keep track of all of your resources with these dials, and there's stats on your units and everything there. Each faction also has stronghold tokens with development tokens that sort of slot in. These are the home realm setup tokens, which are used during setup, and we'll get into that very soon. These are activation tokens to show which regions that faction is being active in. These are dragon rune tokens, and we'll get into that in a little bit, but those are kind of the purpose of the game, is to get those. We have influence tokens here. This is a city token, showing one of the cities. This is an upgrade token for heroes. This is just one of the wound tokens here. And this is a dead hero token, which is used when a hero dies.
Those poor, unfortunate heroes.
There are a few other miscellaneous tokens too, which we'll get to when we get to them. These are all of the cards that come with the game.
That's a lot of cards, man.
It is. So first of all, we have the season cards. There are actually 4 different card backs for those, and we'll get into why a little bit later. These are the fate cards that are used to determine pretty much everything random in the game. These are the tactics cards. These are the hero cards. These are the objective cards, and they come in evil and good, depending on which faction you're playing. These are the reward cards, title cards, quest cards, and these are the action cards for all of the factions. And finally, these are a couple of examples of the map tiles. You will note that there are 3D mountains included with this.
Which is really neat.
Yeah, unfortunately those are not in the revised edition, which is currently being sold.
Aww.
So if you get the first edition, then you get these. Otherwise, well, you don't.
Man, that kind of seems like a waste. They're really cool. I actually looked at those and I was like, man, these are really neat. I remember actually liking these.
Fantasy Flight, what can I say?
Well, fair enough. Gotta cut a corner somewhere. And now we're gonna set up. First, retrieve the fate cards, and this is how you're going to determine the first player. Each player draws a card. Jason, I'm just going to chuck one.
Okay.
Compare the numbers on the bottom.
I have a 6.
I have a 1.
So that means I'm first player.
Jason is first player. Starting with the first player, each player selects their factions, so Jason, you get to pick first.
I'm going to go with the Uthuk.
The Uthic are the red, right?
Yep, they're the demons.
Alright. And as usual, I'm going to go green, which is going to give me a bunch of flower-sniffing elves.
Of course.
So now that we've retrieved our chosen races, we're going to go on to setting up the actual board. So to set up the board, first retrieve the quest deck, remove the cards that say Setup Quest from the deck, shuffle the setup quests, then deal 2 face-up to each player. If you'll note, all of the setup cards actually have hex tiles on them with a number-letter combination. They look like they're all A's. And this actually indicates a certain type of tile that you actually retrieve from the board to start setting up your actual board. So right now I've drawn 5A and 1A. Jason has drawn 7A and 3A. So your starting tiles will usually have several different sections on them that are like number, letter, but you're just looking for the number A of your thing. So this board here has 5A on it, so this is the one it's indicating when it says 5A. In addition, at this step, we're also actually retrieving our starting locations. So in this case, this is actually mine. This one just kind of looks similar. This is my other startup tile. Jason has his 2 startup tiles and his starting location as well. Or his home region, rather. So not surprising, starting with the starting player, map tiles are then placed. There are a few rules that go along with this, but we'll mention them as we go along.
So since I am the first player, I'm going to choose one of my 2 map tiles to place as the central tile, and I'm going to choose this one. I think it's a good starting point.
So next I get to place my tile. So now we're going to go over how tile placement, like the restrictions you have on. So first off, when I place my tile, at least 2 regions, and by regions we're referring to the hexes, must be touching the previous tile. So say for example, I couldn't place it here because although 3 of my regions are touching this tile, I have to be able to touch 2 of this tile's regions with mine. This, however, would be okay because I actually have 2 of my regions touching 2 of the regions in here. We're also going to note at this point, there are these red and blue borders on these different tiles here. And when placing tiles, reds can touch reds, reds and blues can touch nothing at all. However, blues and reds cannot touch. Alright, now that I've placed my tile, Jason, you get to place yours. So after all the tiles have been placed that are not your home tiles, the starting player gets 2 of the magic boomerang starting region tiles, and he actually gets to place them based on the following rules. You must be able to count 4 hexes away from any regions touching the home realm markers. If somehow in placing these home realm markers, it's not possible to place 4 hexes away, like just because of the way that the board actually landed, 3 is an acceptable amount of hexes, but only in that situation. If it came down to it that a home region, however, can only be placed up to 2 hexes away, you must actually just start the board over again, reclaiming your appropriate tiles, because you got up. You alright? You know, you gotta make sure you're okay with this. So Jason, place your home realm markers. That's a good spot. That's also a good spot. Those are very, very far away from each other. Now that the home region markers have been placed, starting with the player to the left of the starting player, so the starting player actually goes last in this situation, players take turns placing their home regions in their choice of the starting player, or the starting region markers. So just for the sake of simplicity, I'm just going to take this side here, although that other side seems kind of sweet too. When placing your home region, you must have still, of course, follow the rules for blue and red lines on your region. It also must be touching in the orientation that it was originally placed. So my marker was originally placed like this, which means that I have to have my tiles touching in that orientation. I couldn't say place over here because I would be missing this portion of it. So I remove the magic boomerang from the table, and now Jason gets to place his region.
You actually have to move that over one.
Oh, right. Yeah, for example purposes, I had that there, but that's actually supposed to go there.
Okay. All right, and now I get to place my home realm. So I'm going to orient it like that.
All right, so we have a pretty long board here. Looks like this is just the void from which no runes can be ever claimed again. Next step, neutral units are placed as indicated by the board. Your reference sheet will actually indicate what type of creature you're actually looking for all the individual icons listed on the board. So next we just start setting these up. So something that makes it easy to actually place these neutral mobs. All the neutral mobs have a base that is a specific shape. This will help you sort of figure out which ones are which, and that kind of keeps it easy as well. So you can then take the reference card, place it off to the side. The neutral mobs you are going to need eventually again as well, so don't put them away, just put them off to the side. You'll need them again eventually. Next step, get all the city tiles. Make sure that they are face down because they actually have different randomizing qualities on the back there. Shuffle these little guys up. And they are then placed face up in each of the different locations. And the locations are, in fact, noted by the matching icon on the back of the city tiles. It'll be pretty easy to notice. Next, go back to the quest deck. You are going to be removing all of the quest... I'll turn it around this way so you can actually see it proper. You're going to be removing all the quest cards that have tiles referenced that aren't actually currently in play. So the ones we have in play right now are 3A, 7A, 5A, and 1A, and all the numbers associated with that. So the A is the letter, and there are several different tiles that have different letters that are the same number. So we're going to be removing 9s, 4s, 6s, 8s, and 2s. After you've separated the quests from each other, you then return the quests you've removed from the deck to the box, and these are not going to be used again for the rest of the game. The starting quests we drew at the beginning of the game are actually added to the deck of cards that we're keeping, and these are shuffled all together. Next step, on our player tiles, we're actually setting our resource dials to the starting value. The starting value will be an inverted color that's a little more glowy than the other colors. So in my case, I'm starting on the 2, the 3, and the 2, respectively, going down the line. Next, retrieve the influence and tactics cards, because these are the next step in setting up. Distribute the influence as indicated on the sheets. So Jason is receiving 1 influence. I am receiving 4. Retrieve the tactics cards. Make sure you give them a good shuffle. And hand out the appropriate amount to each player. I'll be receiving 1. Jason will be receiving 4. Next, each player retrieves one of their strongholds from their own components and places it on one of their starting tiles.
So I get to do that first since I'm the first player. So I'm going to place one here.
And I'll be placing my stronghold far at the other end, so I am the furthest away from smelly old Jason. So based on our starting resources here, based on the food, the wood, and the ore that our sheets have been turned to at the beginning, we actually get to place our starting units. And what we are trying to place here is the units from 0 all the way up to the value on our current marking point. So I get the swordsman indicated on 1. You actually do not receive the influence indicated on the sheet here because that's already been included with your starting values. In the next dial, I would receive 1 swordsman, that is an archer and another archer, so 2 more archers. And finally, I receive a sorcerer. Alright, so Jason's retrieved his fellas, and I've retrieved mine. So starting with the starting player, players take turns placing all of their units in their starting areas. So take it away, Jason.
Alright. I think that's how I'm going to start.
And that's how I'm going to start. So I've split up my archers with one of each of my dudes. Jason has left his warrior fellows with on one side and kept his other 2 units together as well. Next, each player receives 3 Dragon Rune tokens. They receive 2 true rune tokens and 1 false token. When you flip them all over, they're actually question marks. So when we are placing these, you will know what runes you are placing, but your opponent will not. And these have to be placed in your starting locations. Now we go back to the quest deck. This is shuffled up. It should already be shuffled up, but it doesn't hurt to give another little shuffle. And both players are dealt 2 quest cards face down. Next, retrieve the deck of hero cards. In this step, you're going to be separating good from evil. So in the top right corner, there'll be an icon. Some of the cards will have a black icon, some of them will have a white icon. There's another one as well. But we're just looking at good and evil right now. Now that they've been separated, shuffle naturally. So I've just shuffled the evil cards. Jason gets one of these.
So I've got Red Scorpion.
And I'm going to shuffle up the good cards, and I get one of these. I have Silhouette. Now, all of the hero cards are then shuffled back together. So the ones with the green, which is a neutral icon, are shuffled back in with the good and the evil cards. So they will all be back together again. One big happy family of heroes. Next, take your hero, the actual hero miniatures and retrieve the ones as appropriate. So then we place our hero in one of our starting regions. So next we're just going to be putting out all the decks and shuffling them appropriately. So in this part here, make sure to retrieve your deck of... Jason, what were these called again?
Action cards.
Action cards. You're retrieving your deck of action cards. So I'm retrieving mine. Jason gets his. While I'm doing this, Jason has actually been separating out the seasons cards. So Jason has separated out all the seasons for us. You place each deck out on the table. You're going to be cycling through these seasons as time goes on. Every year obviously has one of each of the 4 seasons, naturally. Shuffling out the fake cards. Shuffle up the evil cards all together. Shuffle all the good cards up together. Shuffle up all your rewards. The title cards, however, are not shuffled, not that it would really matter. These are just placed face up next to the board. Now that you have this all down and appropriately laid, deal out 1 objective of the appropriate type to each player. So Jason's going to get an evil one, and I am going to get a good one. Because I am good.
Debatable.
I am so good.
At being evil.
At being good.
And evil.
So we have a giant token stew going on over here, but your tokens should technically be sorted out appropriately next to the board. We are far too lazy at this, and honestly, I am scoffing at Jason for not having significantly better organization, so tisk on you, Jason. But I guess you guys can have them properly set up. Honestly, if you are a diehard at this game, you will probably buy a Plano box and have them all set up in that way, which makes it significantly easier during this step anyway. But technically, one of the last things you want to do is make sure all the tokens are in appropriate piles together. We're just a bunch of lazy scripts. And now, you are ready to play.
Now that the game's all set up, let's talk about how to actually play it. So the game takes place over a series of rounds, and in each round there are essentially 3 phases. First of all, each round you're going to be resolving a season card, and well, it's going to rotate with the seasons, so you're going to be going through a total of 6 years potentially. The second phase is to choose order cards, so you're going to choose one of the order cards from your own faction's order cards, place it face down on the table, and then step 3 is to reveal those order cards, and everybody actually gets to do what their order cards say. Now, steps 1 and 2 are actually resolved simultaneously by all players, just to speed things along. Step 3 actually goes according to the cards. So each card has a number at the bottom. They are numbered 1 through 8. So the lowest valued card is resolved first, and then it goes in ascending order, depending on what was played. So starting with the season cards, the first round is going to start at spring. So it's going to go spring, summer, autumn, winter. So on the first round, at the very start, a spring card is drawn. Now each season card has a title at the very top. It has a primary ability, which is just the text in the center here, and a secondary ability. The secondary ability is unique to that specific season. It's basically just a reminder of what happens during that season. So when resolving a season card, you resolve the primary ability first, and then the secondary ability is resolved. And again, the secondary abilities are the same for all cards of that season. So let's have a look at the season abilities first. So during springtime, all activation tokens which were formerly placed on the areas of the board are actually removed and returned to their factions. Any order cards that had been played previously are returned to their players. And any routed figures, so that's figures that are knocked over, are stood back up. When a summer season card is resolved, a quest phase immediately happens. We're going to go over what that means later on in this video, but basically it means that your heroes get to do things. During the fall, first of all, the Fate deck is actually reshuffled, so any discard pile that is accrued is shuffled back in. And then each player can choose to gain either 2 influence or 1 tactics card. Finally, during the winter, first of all, players' units in each area must be reduced to their current food value. So if you have 3 food currently, then you can only have 3 units in each area. If you are over that in any area, then you have to remove units from the board so that you comply with that rule. During the winter phase, you can actually ignore the blue borders on the tiles because, well, the rivers and lakes are frozen, so you can walk across them. All of these abilities are actually resolved in standard play order based on the number of the order card that the players had played during the previous turn. So after you've dealt with the season, as I said, the next step is to choose an order card. So each faction has a deck of 8 order cards. All factions have the same order cards. They just have different graphics, basically. So you select which one you want to use for this round, and you place it face down in front of you. And each player has to choose an order card like this, and after all players have chosen their order card, you move on to resolving the order cards. It should also be noted that after use, order cards actually remain unavailable until they are returned to the player's hand as a result of the secondary ability on the next spring card. Over the course of a year, you're going to get to play 4 different cards, and you cannot play the same card twice during a year. So the third phase is where pretty much everything happens, and that is the resolve order cards phase. So to start with, each player is going to turn his chosen order card face up. Players now take actions according to the new play order, and play order is determined by the chosen cards. So, if I played my number 4 card, and Ken has played his number 7 card, I get to go first because I've played the lower number card. And this play order, with me first, Ken second, will last until the start of the next resolve orders cards phase. In the event that we've both played the same card, ties are actually broken according to amount of influence that you currently have. So if Ken had also played his number 4 card, then Ken would actually get to go first because he has 4 influence and I only have 1. In the event that there's still a tie, then you actually go by the starting influence of the faction, and these are all different, so there is no chance of a tie here. Now each order card has a title at the very top, it has a primary ability, and then what's called a supremacy bonus. When it comes to a player's turn to resolve his card, he will always be able to perform the primary action. In addition, if the current card is the highest valued card the player has played so far this year, he also gets the supremacy bonus. So for example, if Ken had played the 7 first, if he then played the 8, he would get the supremacy bonus because 8 is higher than 7. However, subsequent to that, if he played any other card, say if he played the 1, he would not get the supremacy bonus because this is no longer the highest card. So it actually benefits you quite a bit to play cards in order, although there are certainly some situations where it would be a good idea to play them out of order. And as I've kind of shown here, as you play these cards, you actually add it to the pile of cards that you've already used this year, just to show what you have already played, and to denote that these are no longer available for use for this year. Next, we're going to talk about the resource system, and this is kind of unique to this game, and I feel this is probably what's going to trip a lot of people up, so pay close attention here. So as you'll be able to see on the various areas of the board, the areas provide a certain number of resources for the most part, and these come in either food or wood, and these correspond to the dials on your faction sheet. Now it's important to note, and this is again one of the things that's going to trip people up, you do not gain resources when you claim a territory. So if I took over this area here, which shows 1 food, I do not get to move my dial up by 1 food. You only update your resource dials when instructed to by a card. So one of the order cards actually allows you to harvest, which would let you reset your dials, for example. The second important thing to note is that when a dial is updated, you do not gain any indicated rewards. You only gain these rewards when instructed by a card. So you'll get to see that during the example play. Hopefully that'll clarify it a bit, but just keep those two things in mind. Next, we're going to talk about unit movement. So first of all, throughout the game, you're going to be placing activation tokens on certain areas. When an activation token is in an area, you cannot move any of your units in that area out of the area. They have to stay there until the activation token is removed. Whenever your units are moved into a territory with enemy units, so that's units belonging to another player, you immediately start a battle. And if your units are moved into an area with neutral units, then you must either start a battle or you can try diplomacy to try and get them as allies. Some movement orders will require you to activate an area. That means that you simply place an activation token there. You may not activate an area if you already have an activation token there. Heroes are the exception to all of these movement rules. They can move out of activated areas, and they do not start battles when they enter an enemy or neutral area. They can pretty much move freely. When you're moving using a mobilize or conquer order, the units being moved may only move through friendly or empty areas, and that will be noted on the order cards themselves. Units that have the fast trait, and that will be indicated on your faction sheet, can actually move 3 spaces with a mobilize or conquer order instead of the typical 2. Some units will also be flying, usually you can tell by the wings, and they can actually ignore mountains and water, so that's the blue and red edges. As I noted previously, during winter, any unit can move across the water because, well, it's frozen. And a player may never have more than 8 units in an area, regardless of the winter food situation. The exception to that is at the start of a battle. So at the start of a battle, you can actually have more units in there, but at the end of the battle, if you should happen to still have more units, you're going to have to remove some. Next, let's talk about diplomacy. So this is what occurs when you actually move into an area with neutral units. Well, it's what can happen. You can choose to just battle them if you want to. So the first thing that's going to happen is you have to choose to spend between 1 and 6 influence inclusive. So let us say that Ken has chosen to use 2 influence here. So next, the player draws that number of fate cards. So in this case, 2. Finally, he resolves one of those cards. Now there are 3 possible outcomes, and this is based on the icon at the very top. If you draw one of the white icons with the star, then the units ally themselves with the player, and you just denote that by just leaving your unit in the same region. If you choose a blue neutral icon, the units have to retreat, so they're simply moved to an adjacent empty region. In the event that you draw a red icon and choose it, then the units actually attack, and in that case, you immediately must start a battle, or choose to retreat. So obviously, the more cards that you draw, the more likely that you're going to get a good outcome. It should also be noted that diplomacy happens against all units in the region at once. So if Ken actually attempted diplomacy here, then he would have to try for both Razor Wings. He couldn't just try for one. So now in the situation where you have used diplomacy and you've allied yourself with these neutral units, they are then termed allied units and are controlled by the player. In the event that they are ever left in an area alone, either because you moved away or because all of your guys were killed or whatever, they become neutral again. The sole exception to that is that allied units actually remain allied to the end of the battle, even if all of the friendly units have been previously killed. Although, after the battle, obviously they're going to become neutral again. In the event that a tactics card allows the placement or movement of neutral units into a player-controlled area, those units are then considered allied with that player. He doesn't actually have to go through diplomacy in that situation. In the event that there is a battle with neutral units that are not currently allied, then those units are controlled in battle by the player to the left of the current player. Next, we're going to talk about battles, and this is kind of one of the big parts of this game. So, when a battle starts, the very first thing that you're going to do is find the battle marker and place it in the region. So, this is the battle token. Let us say that the battle is occurring here. So you place it there. Next, the figures are removed to their respective players' faction sheets. So, in this case, Ken's lone archer would be placed next to the archer section of his faction sheet. In the case of neutral units, you just use the neutral unit reference card. It should be noted that if any units are actually routed in that area, or if there are any heroes there, those are not removed from the region. They just stay where they are. They don't participate in the battle. Next, the attacker and then the defender may use any number of start of battle effects. These are going to come from tactics cards or some special ability of an item you have or something like that. Then there are 5 rounds of combat resolved, starting with Initiative 1 and going all the way to Initiative 5. We'll get into how combat rounds work in a second. We're just going to go over the overview now. So after the battle is resolved, players tally their strength. So if they have any fortifications, they can be used now to add some strength. The number of standing units remaining is the base strength for that player. If the battle is taking place in a region where the defender has a stronghold, then the stronghold strength is added. And in addition, the stronghold is actually, it becomes damaged if any attackers are present. And the player with the higher score wins. The losing player must immediately retreat any remaining units. A winning attacker may replace a defending stronghold with his own, damage side up. And he can actually destroy a stronghold elsewhere to do so if he already has all of his strongholds on the board. Finally, both players remove all damage from their units. The winner places his remaining units in the contested area, and the battle marker is removed. So now let's get into the nitty-gritty of combat rounds. So with each combat round, again, it starts with Initiative 1. First of all, the attacker chooses a unit type of this initiative that he hasn't yet drawn for, and draws cards equal to the number of units. So using this as an example here, Ken's archer has an initiative of 1, so he gets to draw 1 card at this point if he chooses the archer. In the event that he has multiple units with the same initiative, then he has to choose one group or the other. The defender does the same, so he chooses one of his Initiative 1 units, and he draws a number of fate cards equal to the number of that type of unit he has. Next, starting with the attacker, the players reveal any special ability icons from their hand of fate cards that they just drew. So, each fate card, in the main portion of it, is separated into 4 regions, and these denote the different base types of the units. So triangle, rectangle, circle, and hexagon. So you look at the region that corresponds to the unit type that you're using. So for example, Ken's archer is on a triangle base, so he's going to be looking at the triangle region of the card. So if he has any cards that show the special ability icon, which is the crystal ball, in that region, then he gets to play them now and activate the special ability of that unit, as noted on the faction sheet. So again, the attacker goes first, then the defender. Next, again starting with the attacker, If there are any route symbols in the relevant area, and those are going to be flags, then routes are resolved. So attacker, then defender. Next, any damage that occurs, and the damage is the sort of almost blood drop shaped token. If there's any damage, then the attacker goes first with that, and then the defender. And then, if there happen to be any other units that have that same initiative, again, they both get to select a unit type and go on until all of the units of that initiative have actually gotten to go. It's important to note that once a card is drawn for a unit, icons on that card are resolved regardless of whether that unit was destroyed or not. So these are happening simultaneously. In the event that a unit is destroyed before cards are drawn for it, it doesn't get to draw at all in the combat. So if it was at a higher initiative and it happened to die because of damage that was assigned to it, then it won't get to draw cards. In addition, damage must be assigned to a previously damaged unit whenever possible, or a standing unit failing that, and finally to routed units. So if you have 2 units that have 3 damage that they can take, and you have to take 4 damage, you can't simply take 2 to each. You would have to fully kill one off first. Now I mentioned routing in there. When a unit is routed, it's placed on its side, just to denote that it is routed. Routed units and heroes may not do anything until they are rallied during the spring. Routing damage must be assigned to undamaged units whenever possible. When forced to damage or destroy a unit, the player may not choose a routed unit while standing units remain. So whenever anybody has to retreat, either because neutral units are moving out of a region or because someone has lost a battle, friendly units must retreat to a friendly area when possible, so that's another region with other friendly units in it. They can also, if there are no friendly areas available, then they can also move to an empty area. If neither are available, then the units are simply destroyed. The player to the retreating player's left chooses an uncontrolled area for any neutral units to retreat to. If there isn't one, then the units are destroyed instead. Heroes may retreat to any adjacent area, although they aren't often forced to retreat, so it's probably not going to come up. Finally, when a figure retreats, it is always routed as well. Next, let's talk about heroes and questing. So when a hero is gained, it is immediately placed at one of your strongholds. You may never have more than 3 heroes, so if you ever gain a 4th, then one has to desert. You may also never have more than 3 quests in your hand. If you ever have more than 3, then you have to discard down until you only have 3. During the quest phase, which again happens while the summer card is being resolved, each player, in turn order, may give an order to each of their heroes. They can choose to either move, heal, or train. If they choose to move, they can move up to 2 areas, and optionally start a duel or attempt a quest wherever they end up. If they choose to heal, which can only be done in a friendly area, they remove all damage from the hero. And if they choose to train, then they increase 2 attributes by 1 or 1 by 2. And this is done using the attribute tokens. Quests typically require your hero to be in a specific area on the board. If your hero is ever in that area during a move action in the quest phase, you may play that card to attempt the quest. Each hero can only attempt 1 quest per turn, and routed heroes may not attempt quests. If the result of the quest is to receive a reward, then the quest has been completed. And that's just in case something references when a quest is completed. The hero receives a reward card, which is these ones here. The quest is discarded, and a new quest is drawn. Most quests are going to require a hero to perform an attribute test. So to perform an attribute test, you draw a number of fate cards equal to the appropriate attribute. So the attributes are just along the right-hand side of the card. And then you can select any one of these cards. And again, it goes by the icon at the top of the card, just like with diplomacy. So you choose whatever icon you want out of the cards you drew, and you follow the instructions on the quest card that correspond to that icon. Whenever a reward is gained, it is placed face down under the card of the hero who gained it. And that card remains face down until the player wishes to use the card, at which point it remains face up for the rest of the game. The identity of face-down rewards may not be shared with other players. Rewards can be traded freely between heroes, so long as they are in the same area. And they can even be traded while a hero is moving through an area. Regardless of what rewards the hero is actually carrying, however, only one weapon and one armor reward can be used during each combat. And speaking of combat, combat between two heroes are called duels. So a hero may start a duel with an enemy hero during the quest phase if they are in the same space. If either hero is defeated during a duel, his opponent may claim all of his rewards. Some quests actually require a duel with a neutral unit, and in these cases the neutral unit exists only for the duration of the quest, so it's never actually placed on the board. Duels are played out as follows. First of all, the player starting the duel chooses a hero as the defender. Start of duel cards may be played starting with the attacker, and this is similar to start of battle cards. These are going to be tactics cards or something like that. 4 rounds of combat then occur. And rounds are pretty simple. Basically, each player draws a fate card, starting with the attacker. Then each player resolves the circle action of the fate card, and all heroes have circular bases in case you forget. In the event that a special ability icon is drawn, then the hero may deal 1 damage, or may use a special ability of one of his rewards. In the event that he's drawn a rout, then he actually gets to prevent a number of wounds equal to the rout value. And finally, if he draws a damage icon, then the opponent takes this much damage. All attacks occur simultaneously. So even if a hero is killed, he still may get to attack back. After 4 rounds, or after a hero is defeated, the duel is over. In the event that a hero is ever defeated outside of a duel, his figure and card are returned to the box, and his rewards are placed next to the board. A defeated hero token, which is these ones here, are placed on this pile and on the board, and these are numbered so that they will correspond. Any hero that then goes to that area may take all of the rewards. In the event that a hero deserts, his figure is removed from the board, his card is shuffled into the hero deck, and his rewards are discarded face up. So next, a little bit about the fate cards. Whenever a player is instructed to draw fate cards, all of the cards must be drawn. The fate card discard pile can be looked at by any player at any time. And in the event that the fate cards run out while drawing cards, the discard pile is shuffled to form a new deck, and the remaining cards are then drawn from it. So next up, we're going to talk about Dragon Runes, which ultimately is the name of the game here. Whenever a player is instructed to receive 1 Dragon Rune, first of all, the player may choose to discard up to 2 false runes from areas that he already controls. The player then takes 1 Dragon Rune and 1 false rune and randomizes them. The player may then look at both runes and place them face down in any friendly or uncontrolled region that doesn't already have a rune token in it. If either or both of the tokens cannot be placed, then they are instead discarded face up. A player may always look at any rune token in any area that he controls or has a hero in. Players may never show the face of a rune token to another player, though. Now just a couple of miscellaneous bits. First of all, everyone was dealt an objective card face down at the start of the game, and these cards are kept face down until their conditions are met. As soon as the conditions are met, even if it's in the middle of someone else's turn, the player may flip the card over to receive a Dragon Rune. Tactics cards now. Tactics cards may not be played on the same season that they are gained. So it's a good idea when gaining tactics cards to sort of tuck them under your faction sheet until the next season has started, just to remind you of this. Tactics cards that can be played in battle may only be played in a battle that the player has at least 1 unit in, so you can't throw a card in to someone else's battle, basically. A player may only have up to 10 tactics cards in his hand at one time. If he ever has more, he has to discard down. One other thing that may come up during the game is an influence bid. Whenever a card instructs players to perform an influence bid, first, each player must verbally declare how many influence he currently has, so that everyone knows where everyone's at. Next, each player hides his influence and takes any number of tokens that he chooses and places it in one hand. Once all players have chosen, they reveal their bids simultaneously and resolve the bid as instructed. All bid tokens are then discarded. even if you did not win. Finally, the most important bit, winning the game. If a player ever controls 6 areas containing dragon runes, he may immediately declare this, prove it, and he wins. In the event that no player has won by the end of the 6th year, then the player with the most dragon runes wins. In the event of a tie, then the player with the most current influence wins, and if there's still a tie, again, it goes to starting influence. Now let's have a look at some example turns. Alright, so we're going to get started now. So the first thing we do during the first round is we draw a season card. So we're going to be drawing a spring card, since this is the first round. So we've drawn the card Heroes for Hire, and it says, perform an influence bid. The highest bidder may draw the top 2 cards of the hero deck and choose one to keep. Shuffle the other card back into the hero deck. Alright, so since we're doing an influence bid, first of all, we have to verbally declare how much influence we have. I have 1.
I have 4.
So now we hide our influence.
Now, is influence spent regardless?
Yes.
Alright.
So we choose how much influence we wish to bid, put it in a hand, and we reveal simultaneously.
I bid 1, Jason has bid none.
Well, I only have the 1 influence, so I feel I should hold on to it for a while.
Maybe just for a little bit. Alright, so what happens when I win this?
So now Ken gets to draw 2 cards from the top of the hero deck.
That's this one, right?
Yes.
Alright.
He gets to choose one of those to keep, and the other one is discarded.
Alright, so between the 2 options, I have chosen Mordrog, who is a neutral minion. So I'll go and find his miniature in a moment. The other one's discarded to the bottom of the deck?
It's actually shuffled back into the deck.
Oh, okay, shuffle back into the deck.
Yeah.
Well, that's fair. Because otherwise I could just completely block people on heroes if they wanted to. Alright, so I'm going to go find that token. Do you want to keep going?
Yep. So Ken's going to find that and place it at his stronghold. The next thing that's going to happen, technically, is the secondary ability of the season card. In this case, nothing's actually going to happen, but I do just want to note that this is what would happen, if we were a little bit later in the game. So with Spring, first of all, any activation tokens that were on the board would be removed and returned to the player. Any order cards that had been played during the previous year would, again, be returned to the player. And any routed units would be stood up. So at this point, we're going to place this as the first card of the season card discard pile. And then we're going to move on to the choose order card phase. I'm going to choose this card.
Alright, I've chosen my card as well.
Alright, so now we move on to the final phase and resolve the orders. So we're going to flip them over, and we're going to have a look. So I've played Strategize, which is number 1. Ken has played Mobilize, which is number 2. And because I have the lower number, I am going to get to go first. So Strategize says move any of your units and heroes to adjacent friendly or empty areas. Do not activate the areas. So I'm going to choose to move some of my units into this region with the city, and that's considered an empty region, so I can do that and essentially claim the city. Second, again, because this is the highest numbered card that I have played this year so far, I am actually going to get the supremacy bonus. And it says draw tactics cards as allowed by your resources. So looking at my resources, that means I get 1 tactics card. So now on to Ken.
Alright, so I've chosen Mobilize. Mobilize says activate an area and move any of your units to it from up to 2 areas away. I'm going to activate this region here. And now I get to move any number of units into it from up to 2 areas away. Alright, I've chosen to move a warrior and a sorcerer up into this location, which means that I am now faced with 2 neutral mobs. Alright, so I am going to try diplomacy. I'm going to spend 1 influence just to sort of test my luck on this. So that means I only get to draw 1 fate card. So it just so happens that the fate card that I drew has a star in a globe icon at the top, which is the icon that indicates that I can gain them as allies now. And obviously that is kind of what I wanted, so that's great. So that worked out pretty well. I just gained myself a couple dudes. That was pretty sweet.
Mm-hmm.
Next, the second section of Mobilize says Supremacy bonus. Now, do I have a Supremacy bonus?
Yep, well, you always get the Supremacy bonus in the first turn.
Okay, so it indicates here you may resolve this card a second time as long as you do not start a second battle. Well, because I don't want to really lose control of these regions here, I'm thinking I'm just going to wait on this, because I don't really feel like losing control of my home regions. And honestly, I gained some Beastmen as friends, so that's a pretty sweet turn right there. I'm okay with that. So that's going to be it for there.
Alright, so now we're on to the second round, so we're going to start again by resolving a season card. In this case, we're going to be doing a summer card, because summer comes after spring, speaking. This is actually placed on top of the previous card, so you get a running stack of seasons, and you can kind of count through it to see where you're at. Now, this card says, reroute supply caravans. Perform an influence bid. All players except the highest bidder lose one of each resource type.
So, I have 2 influence.
I have 1 influence, still. I think I can guess how this is probably going to go.
Alright, we have both bid none. And in the case of resolving ties in an influence bid, the person with the most unspent influence is a total jerk and also wins the tie. There are other ways to resolve the ties, but they're not relevant to this point. So that means that I win the influence bid, Jason wants to keep on to his 1 influence, and he loses 1 of everything, and I remain superior.
I hate you so much right now.
So good.
So next, again, we do the secondary ability. So in summertime, that's going to be a quest phase. So this goes in player order. So currently it goes by the top cards on our order card pile. So I'm going to be starting. All right. So first of all, I only have the 1 hero, so that's the only hero I'm going to be using. And again, I can choose to either move, heal, or train. In this case, there's no point in healing because, well, she's at full health. And I don't really feel like doing any training, so I'm going to move. So I can move up to 2 regions. And I am going to move to here. Now afterwards, you can start a duel if you're in an area with another hero. I'm not. But you can also play a quest card if you happen to have one corresponding to the area that you're in. And I do. The Blackwing Hag, which corresponds to Area 7A, which is where I am. So it reads, there are stories of an old hag, ragged and wicked, living in Blackwing Swamp. She is rumored to have collected many treasures over the years. This says test wisdom. Now, looking at Red Scorpion's card, her wisdom is 2, which means that I get to draw 2 fate cards. And again, I look at the icon on the top. So I've drawn a red icon and a blue icon. Obviously, I don't want to do the red icon, because that would mean I fail. In this case, actually, the blue icon is good enough to actually pass the test. So I look at that the corresponding area of the card, and it says, the witch is tricked, receive reward. So I get to draw a reward card. I look at it. Ken does not.
Well, I want to see it.
Well, that's too bad.
Oh.
So I place it face down under Red Scorpion's card, and that remains face down until I choose to use it. Then I discard the quest card and draw another one. So that's all of my heroes. So now Ken gets to make the same decision for his 2 heroes.
So first off, I'm going to move Mordrog 2 regions, ending in here. Mordrog's special ability is, when this hero ends his quest phase in an area containing an enemy or neutral unit, your opponent must destroy one of their triangle units present. Now, since they're neutral, do I just get to pick, I'm assuming?
Yep.
Okay. Well, they're the same anyway, it doesn't really matter. I destroy one of the triangles. So that's one of the razor wings destroyed in that area. I also have Silhouette. Silhouette says, Before moving this hero during the quest phase, I may discard one quest to draw one new quest. I discard this quest that indicates a region that I'm really far away from and gather something else. Well, at this point, I feel like I don't really have much in the way of quests worth completing. So I'm just going to give Silhouette a little training montage. And we're going to improve one skill by 2, so we're going to improve her wisdom by 2, so she now has a total of 3 wisdom. I'm kind of lacking in the wisdom domain. I feel like that could come up at some point, so I'd like to have that with both of them.
Alright, so that was the quest phase, and that's the end of the seasons phase.
Yep.
So now we get to choose another order card, and again, we can't reuse the one that we've already played.
Now, do we cycle through all of these order cards before returning these order cards back to our hand, or is it just a one-at-a-time thing?
The order cards are actually returned to your hand at the end of every spring phase, so you will play 4 cards throughout the year, and then you get them back.
Gotcha, okay.
Alright, so here's the card I'm choosing.
And I've chosen this one.
Alright, so let's flip them. I've chosen Mobilize.
I've chosen Harvest.
Alright, so I get to go first, because Mobilize is a 2, Harvest is a 4. And as Ken's already played it, you probably remember what it does. Activate an area, move any of your units to it from up to 2 areas away. I'm actually going to activate this area here. And I'm going to move this guy and this guy over here. So I no longer control the city, technically. But I am going to be starting a battle. Because I don't do no diplomacy. Demons don't roll like that. Alright, so first of all, we're going to take the battle marker and we're going to place it in the region. I'm going to take my guys and place them next to the appropriate areas on my board.
Oh, okay.
Ken is going to be playing the part of the neutral units for this.
Yeah!
So he's going to take the 2 neutral units and place them next to the neutral unit reference card.
And these are both Beastmen. Yeah, let's screw up these guys.
So the next thing that happens is that we can play any start of battle cards. Well, Ken can't. I can, because I actually am in the battle.
Actually, you've activated my trap card!
That's not a thing.
Oh. Well, then, yeah, you're right. I shouldn't play anything.
I choose not to play any start of battle actions.
Alright.
So then we move on to the actual combat rounds. So we're going to start with Initiative 1. Technically, there is nothing that is Initiative 1 in this battle, so we're just going to skip right on to number 2. So for number 2, first of all, the attacker chooses a unit type. I'm going to choose my Berserker because it's the only Initiative 2 one that I have. Ken then gets to choose a unit type. I am going to go ahead and guess that he's choosing Beastman.
Dude, you can't tell me what to do. I'm choosing Beastman.
Alright, fair enough. I've been told. So next, I get to draw my cards first. I have 1 of the matching unit type, so I get to draw 1 fate card. Thank you. Ken gets to draw 2. Alright, so because these are all triangle-based units, we're going to be looking at the triangle section of the card. So first of all, if either of us have any special ability icons, and that's the crystal ball icon, we're going to reveal those now. So I happen to. I'm going to play that.
I do not.
Alright, so I get to activate my special ability. So the special ability of the Berserker is you may destroy 1 of your standing Berserkers to deal 2 damage.
Okay.
In this case, I think I'm actually going to do that.
So you can deal that damage across the 2 Beastmen? Because they have 1 hit point each, as I understand it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I am going to destroy the Berserker, and that's going to deal 2 damage. However, that's not actually resolved yet.
Okay, alright.
Because all of the cards have to go through. So next up, if there are any route symbols, those have to be declared.
That's the one with the flag.
That's a flag.
Yeah. No, I don't have any, and I'm not sure. Jason is done playing his cards.
That I have the 1 card, so.
Yeah.
Finally, if there are any with a damage icon in them, that must be played. So Ken has 1 damage. So I have to take 1 damage. Unfortunately, I was hoping he didn't have that.
So that means that your Warlock is going to have to take that, right?
That is correct.
All right.
So, again, this all happened simultaneously, so even though technically Ken's guys were already killed, they do still get their final hurrah. So it...
I imagine what happened here is that the Beastmen just beelined right over for the Warlock, and the Berserker, in a fit of rage, because he was in love with that Warlock, sacrificed himself nobly to destroy these Beastmen so they could not destroy any other pretty Warlocks.
Be that as it may, that means that every unit has been destroyed.
Total annihilation!
So...
Now, I still had one card remaining in my hand, and it was actually one with 0 icons, so that one is just basically useless for this purpose, right?
That is correct.
Alright, so these are all discarded back.
So we remove those guys, this...
We'll take this back
out of the way.
Yep.
Remove the battle marker, and...
And now your hero is lonely again.
Indeed. Alright, so, technically I could take the Supremacy bonus, because I've played a number 2, and that is the highest card that I've played so far. However, I don't think I want to move any of my remaining units, considering I only have half of my my original army right now.
Yeah, it's not looking too good for you, man. This was a harsh turn for you.
I'm going to have to do some recruiting.
This was a bad summer for you.
We're going to have to post some people at the bus stations, see if we can't raise some people for our army. In any case, that is it for me, so Ken, take it away.
Alright, so I've chosen Harvest, and this allows me to reset my resource tiles based on the areas I control. So Harvest, first off, yeah, my wood, I have 4 wood icons, so it's going to place me up to 4 for wood. I have 3 food icons, that's going to put me up to 3 for food. And finally, I have 2 ore icons. So nothing's changed with there, so that means that I just remain on 2 for there. Now, I have a Supremacy bonus, since this is now the highest card I have played. Gain any bonuses provided by your developments. Now, I don't actually have any developments yet, right? Alright. Then you may lose 1 wood to build a development at a friendly stronghold. Ah, there we go. Now we get some developments. So yeah, well, I am going to lose 1 wood to build a development at a friendly stronghold. So I have 3 different options for my my developments. I am going to I'm going to use one that allows me to gain influence at every time I use the harvest action in the future, which obviously is not going to be again until the next spring. I like me some influence. And that's it for my harvest, so I guess that's the end of another round.
That's correct. Alright, so round 3. So, obviously we've gone through spring and summer, now we're going to go into autumn. So let's have a look at what autumn has in store. Revealing their true nature. That sounds ominous.
Mm-hmm.
Each hero not matching a player's affiliation deserts him unless he spends 1 influence, or 2 influence if the hero is opposite to his faction's alignment. So, in my case, I'm good. All my people are evil.
Well, I actually have a neutral hero, so that means I'll have to spend 1 influence to keep him. Now, is there any further effect to this card, or something I should be aware of?
Nope.
Alright, well, I'm going to spend that 1 influence to keep him, because he's a pretty cool dude.
So next, the secondary ability happens, and again, for autumn, first of all, we're going to shuffle the Fate deck discard pile into the Fate deck.
Alright.
And second, going in player order, so starting with me, each of us can choose to either take 2 influence or 1 tactics card. In this case, I'm not very influential, so I'm thinking I'm gonna take 2 influence.
Well, I don't want to lose out in the arms race, so I'm also going to take 2 influence as well, because I've been spending my influence like it's nothing, because to me it's nothing, honestly.
Obviously, yes.
Yeah.
Alright, so now we choose an order card. And that's mine.
That's mine.
Alright, flip them! Alright, so first of all, my harvest thing happens, so reset your resource dials. So, as you may recall, I had to move all of my dials down by 1, so I'm going to move them back up.
Poor unfortunate soul.
Quite you. So that's done.
Everything is coming up elf.
Next, gain any bonuses provided by your developments, and you may then lose 1 wood to build a development at a friendly stronghold. So, I'm going to choose to actually do that. I'm going to lose 1 wood, and I am going to build a development. And the development I'm going to build is one which allows me to immediately move one of my resource tiles up by 1. In this case, I think I'm going to go with food. Because that gives me more dudes when I do some recruiting. And I think we all know what's going to happen next.
Yeah, I think so.
So that is it for me. So Ken.
Alright, I have chosen recruit. The first step of recruit is recruit units based on one of your resource types. I'm going to choose food, which allows me to get 2 warriors. Nice and simple. These warriors are going to be placed on my stronghold. So then the second part is the supremacy bonus. This is card 5, so this is the highest one I've done, so I have supremacy bonus. Then recruit troops based on a second resource type. I am going to choose wood, which is going to give me 2 more archers, which are also placed on my home stronghold.
I do not like all of these elves that are showing up.
I don't know what you're talking about.
In any case, again, that is the end of the round. Alright, so round 4. So now we're into winter. This is the end of year 1. So let's see what winter has in store. Dragon Rune Discovery. Perform an influence bid. The highest bidder receives 1 Dragon Rune. Well.
I have 3 influence.
I also have 3 influence.
Ooh, so this might actually be the first one where we're actually having like a bid. Like a real bid.
Alright. And reveal.
Oh, Jason has spent 2. I have spent 1. That means this is the first time you actually won an influence bid. Achievement unlocked.
Woo! Alright, so there are a couple of things that happen now. First of all, I can choose to discard up to 2 false rune tokens if I so wish. In this case, I think I'm going to forgo that. Then I receive 1 false and 1 true Dragon Rune token. That's these here. So I'm going to take them under the table and randomize them so Ken doesn't know which is which.
Alright, okay, I see.
I'm going to take a quick peek at them. And I'm going to place them, so I can place them in any friendly or uncontrolled region. So I'm going to place 1 in this region with the city, and 1 in this region with my hero.
I see how it is. You don't want to give me any of them.
I think you've got enough over there, with all of your elves.
What? They don't count as dragon runes. I would gladly sacrifice every elf on the board for just 1 more dragon rune. Just 1 more hit.
In any case, moving along. So next we have to do the secondary ability of the winter card. So first of all, we have to look at supply lines. So at this point, we can only have a number of units in each area equal to our food value, with any excess being removed.
Alright, so in this case, the only person that this actually affects is me, because I have 4 units in 1 area, and my food level is currently at 3. So, I don't know. I kind of want these warriors more than I want these archers, because the archers are just kind of probably going to stay at home for the most part, so I'll discard 1 of my archers. Bring me back to 3 in this area.
I managed to call my army myself, so I'm good.
Yeah, you had no problem doing it on your own.
I do technically have 4 food now, so I've got a lot of excess, but it's all good. And of course, the other ability icon on the winter season card merely denotes that for this season we can actually move through any water edges because lakes are frozen.
Right, absolutely.
Alright, so now we choose an order card, the last of this year.
Alright, we've chosen our cards.
Alright, flip them.
I have chosen Conquer.
I have unsurprisingly chosen Recruit.
Surprise, surprise.
So in this case, Ken actually gets to go first because Conquer is number 3.
Alright, I am actually going to move all my dudes over to here. From my stronghold.
You have to activate the area first.
Oh, right. I have to activate it and then I move all my dudes.
Yeah.
So now we go to combat. I'm going to place my warriors in the warrior side. They're initiative 4, so that's pretty bad.
Battle marker goes down.
Right. And I'm going to place my archer up in the archer side. Jason gets to take the role of the razor wing, who is actually initiative 1 alongside of my archer.
Alright, so first of all, if anybody has any start of battle cards or abilities that they wish to play, this would be the time. So, Ken?
This would be in the sword cards, right?
The tactics,
yeah. No, I do not.
Alright, so now we move on to the first round. So, starting at initiative 1, the attacker can declare one unit type he's going to be using.
I'm going to be using archer.
I am going to be using my lone razor wing.
Alright, great.
So, again, starting with the attacker, Ken gets to draw one card.
I have one archer, so I draw my one card.
I have one razor wing, so I draw my one card.
Ooh.
So now, again, referring to the appropriate area, does anybody have any special abilities to declare?
No.
I do.
Oh.
The razor wing special ability is Stun. Your opponent must rout one of his units with initiative 2 or higher.
Route meaning that I have to place them in an adjacent area? That I control?
No, it means you knock him over.
Oh.
And he basically, well, he can't be used for the rest of the year, I guess.
Not, it's, yeah.
Doesn't really
He'll wake
matter.
up in a couple days.
Yeah. One hell of a headache. Alright, so next, technically, we have to declare any routes. Do you have any routes, Ken?
Nope.
Do you have any damage?
Nope.
Alright, so we discard these fate cards.
This is a bad one for me.
Then we move on to initiative 2. Do you have any initiative 2?
Nope. Next one in for me is 4.
We'll just motor right on to 4.
That sounds good. So my routed dude doesn't count towards this, so I'm still only drawing 1.
That is correct.
And we'll just go right to the punch. I didn't actually draw any icons on this card as... Oh, wait! No, these are rectangles. I was thinking they were still triangles. So actually, the very first thing is that he gets his special icon there, which is deal 1 damage or destroy the damaged or routed enemy of your choice. So he only has 1 hit point?
Yep.
So whatever, just deal 1 damage and take him out.
Alright, so the razor wing
Knock him
is
out the
destroyed.
box. Alright.
So then Ken, being victorious, gets to return his dudes to the board with the routed unit remaining knocked over.
Alright.
The routed guy gets to go back to...
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you meant he's remained over here.
No.
Okay, yeah, okay, everyone's returned back to the board.
Cool. And the battle marker is removed. Alright, so moving on to me. Again, recruit says recruit units based on one of your resource types. I'm going to choose food because that gets me 3 berserkers. And I likes me some berserkers. So they are getting placed in my stronghold.
That's a lot of berserkers.
It is. And then I also get my supremacy bonus. So I get to recruit units based on a second type. And in this case, I'm actually going to choose to get a Flesh Ripper.
By choosing the ore resource, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
that is correct. So he also goes in my stronghold, and that is it for me. So that was 1 full year. We've, done a fair bit. This would continue on potentially for up to 5 more years, depending on if anybody gets enough runes to win before then. So, that, folks, is Runewars.
Alright, that was Runewars. Jason, what do we have to say about Runewars?
Well, I really enjoy Runewars. It's unfortunately not a game that I've really gotten to take out of the box a whole lot.
Big dusty board game.
Indeed. It's very big. It's one of the... it's one of those sort of empire-building type games, but I do feel that it's still...
I just want to pull something in here for comparison purpose. This is
Yes.
2 Arkhams large.
That, of course, being the standard unit for board game measurement.
Yes, absolutely.
And Arkham.
Oh, wait, sorry, this is an Eldritch. One horror, a true horror is wide, and it is 1 and I'd say 1/4, maybe 1 1/3 horrors tall.
Good to know.
Yeah, just for comparison purposes. It's a very big game. But it's not like... a big game. Like, it's not like a game that you would just fall apart to understand.
Well, no, ultimately, I feel that it's pretty easy to understand when you're walked through it. I feel like Fantasy Flight kind of dropped the ball on the original edition with this in making it look so big. I mean, I know they like to do their big impressive games with lots of bits, and there are lots of bits in here, but I think they did themselves a disservice by using this size box, because they didn't need the size box. You could easily fit it into a smaller box. In fact, the new revised edition of Runewars is in the standard Fantasy Flight square box.
And honestly, and this is something that I'm seeing more often now, but if you look at, say, the Mansions of Madness style box, where it is one Runewars tall, but one Arkham wide, it is a box that's just a little bigger than the normal box, but is otherwise the same dimensions. And, like, if they wanted an extra room, I know that, again, this is a more recent box for them, they probably could have just used that size, and that would have been fine. Like, this looks like a really big, like whenever you see a big board games like this, you go, oh my god, it's a huge board game, oh my god, I can't play this game, I can't understand this game, but it's usually just to hold a bunch more stuff.
Yeah, and it's one of those, Fantasy Flight things where, ultimately it's a pretty simple game, it's just that there's a lot of, individual bits that go into it, so you have to sort of keep track of all this different stuff.
Yeah.
But ultimately, each individual part is very simple, and if you've got somebody who knows what they're doing and can walk you through it in a reasonable manner, then I think you're good. Unfortunately, Fantasy Flight kind of falls down there because their rulebooks, as most people know, are kind of horrid.
I'm sorry. Like, okay, we'll be talking about this game some point during this season, but they recently put out Eldritch Horror, which is kind of like the new counterpart. It's the new Arkham Lovecraft game that they have going on. And that rulebook is the best rulebook they have done yet, because they have the main rules, which is just like, here's what you need to know to open up the box and play this game. And then they have a separate book that is essentially all reference. And it's the best reference book they have ever put out.
It's alphabetical. All categories are alphabetical.
Yep.
There's an index on the back, which most of their stuff doesn't. Well,
there is cross-referencing.
Yes,
you can look at one thing and it'll say, hey, check out this other section, as opposed to just getting there and being like, what even is this? There is nothing here. I guess I'm just looking up the wrong thing. What am I looking for, I wonder?
So hopefully that's kind of a sign of things to come, although I'm not going to bet the farm on it just yet.
Nah.
But no, that Fantasy Flight's rulebooks are pretty horrendous, and the rulebook for the Runewars First Edition was pretty bad.
It's a big book. It's a big book.
Well, yeah, it's one of those things where I don't even feel that I could learn how to play the game from the book without taking notes.
Yeah, and I feel like that's a really common trend with Fantasy Flight games. Like, that's the thing. Fantasy Flight puts out some excellent games.
Yeah.
I mean, I look at my shelf, and there's a lot of, like, FFG symbols sitting on the sides of these boxes here. Like, I hazard to guess at least, like, maybe upwards of a third.
Can't be representing.
Yeah, no, I love you got me into this, man. I blame you. But I would have to say that one of Fantasy Flight's biggest shortcomings, I think we say this every time a Fantasy Flight game comes up, the rulebook is terrible. It is. And hopefully that's going to be a trend that'll change, but like you said, not holding breath.
Well, yeah. On the other hand, another way to look at this is, when you're starting to pick at the rulebook, well, everything else is pretty good. Because, I mean, ultimately, I enjoy most Fantasy Flight games. I think that they produce really good products. I just do feel that, they've got that one failing.
Absolutely. It's a common failing, and I really hope that they are learning from their mistakes by this point. But yeah, I agree. If the main thing we have to complain about with this game is the rulebook, that should be a good indication that this game is actually pretty decent. It's probably worth your time. I mean, if you've watched all the way through to this point, I'm going to guess, well over an hour-long tutorial review, that you are interested, or at least still interested. Maybe you're holding your reservations till the very end, in which case, that's cool, I guess. I would have to say that even though we do these very elaborate tutorial reviews for all of our games, I've been taking lately to having my players kind of jump feet first into the game. So I would basically explain some very bare essentials, like this is what you're looking at right now. Keep all questions to the end. And when we actually set everything up and then just force someone to just kind of take their turn without knowing, and then rather than trying to get them to remember everything I just said, they are basically learning fresh, but with the experience of actually using the cards and the components and stuff of the game. So I find
then you actually have context to attach it to.
Yeah, so it's if I start telling you these are all the different types of tokens, here's a pile of tokens, here are all the tokens for the game, and then we actually go into the game, you're going to ask, I'm sorry, what token was this again? There's 40 different tokens. I don't remember what this one is. Can you explain this? Whereas if it just kind of came up naturally in the game, that would work. And I feel like a mark of a good game is a game where you can play basically feet first. As long as someone knows how to play. So you have to obviously have at least one person who knows how to play. But as long as you have someone who can pull you along, this is a game that works really well as a feet first game. I feel like though it is a monster in its size, it's actually kind of a gentle giant. I feel like it actually is a very easy game to learn.
All right, well, in that case, Ken, what do you think as far as a rating goes?
All right, I am going with 3.5 meeples. And I was originally going to give it a 3, but then I revised that. I think I've mentioned this before, but it's probably the last time I'm going to mention this because I can't talk too long. I have, in the very first video we did for Dungeon Quest, I gave that a 3.5, and I feel like Dungeon Quest does not deserve a 3.5, but because I gave Dungeon Quest a 3.5, I've sort of had to rate every game that came after that on that scale, and it's this is better than Dungeon Quest. But do I actually feel like it's a 4, a 4.5, or a 5? And in a lot of the cases, I didn't really. So honestly, these Meeple scores are kind of given a little on the fly anyway, and I think we're kind of just really lenient in general. But just remembering that 2.5 would be a borderline, this is an average game. Say a 3 would be a little above average. 3.5, I'd have to say it is clearly above average. And I'm giving Runewars a 3.5 because I feel like it is definitely above average. And I was originally going to give it a 3 because I felt like this game is a game I've just seen before. I've seen this kind of style of game before. I've played this kind of style of game a bunch of times. Though admittedly, some of them may just have been influenced by this and the original, to be fair. But I feel like it gets just a little bit of a bump more because this game actually allows you to use diplomacy, which is something that I know it sounds funny when I say that. Jason laughed when I said that earlier too. Yeah. I know that sounds funny, but that's not something you're given an option to do in a lot of games. Usually the game says, here's a bunch of dudes, go kill the other dudes. Go kill the dudes that aren't you. And the fact that I could hire a couple beastmen early on like that, I had a kind of a nice little army going on by the end of our example turns there. Mm-hmm. I think I probably would have did pretty well in the later turns. But 3.5 out of 5 meeples. Jason?
Personally, I'm going to go with 4. I'm a bit more into these large, massive empire-building games, I believe, than Ken is.
Yeah, I'd say so.
And I think there's a lot of things that Runewars has done right. I kind of wish that they had kept the little 3D mountains.
I mean, that's kind of an aesthetic thing. It's nice. To be perfectly honest, I really love these, but the paint job isn't even really all that great.
It's one of those things where it's the thought that counts.
Yes, absolutely.
It's, kind of the punctuation point.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to it, the only reason that I don't want to give it a 5 is the resource system.
Oh yes.
I do kind of like the resource system, or at least I feel like I want to like it, if that makes any sense. But I don't feel it's accessible enough to not necessarily new players, but even to veteran board gamers. There's always those mechanics that people just kind of scratch their heads and some people just don't get. And I think this could potentially be one of them. And in addition, I have to dock them for the rulebook again, because it is what it is. It's very poorly laid out. In fact, when we were filming this video, I realized I hadn't actually talked about cities at all. And that's because, for some reason, all of the rules about cities are under in the reference section of the rulebook under how to do the rally support card. which
to be fair, the intention with that seems to be to keep the stuff that's relevant together, but
at the same time, when I was going through and putting together, like we always, figure everything out with a PowerPoint, and when I was putting together our PowerPoint for this one, I missed that because I didn't think there was anything relevant in the reference section. Honestly, it's the only time that you would need to really look that up is when you're using that specific card, so it probably didn't matter. But at the same time, there's these cities there, and really they should have been mentioned.
How do I cities?
But in any case, again, we're beating a dead horse at this point with the Fantasy Flight rulebook conundrum.
So okay, and this is something I'm kind of putting you on the spot with at this moment, but something I'd like to start doing is when we're talking about these games, it's very easy to bring up shortcomings and stuff, but I feel like we're both pretty avid board gamers. We're fairly knowledgeable about this, and heck, both of us have actually started very amateur level design for board games, which if someone else were to make a video, they would probably be able to tear apart, just like we can tear apart any other board game as well.
Yeah.
But what do you think this game needs to do for you to bring it up to a 5? Like, what would it have to change? And I mean, obviously, you've sort of outlined what you don't like, but can you give examples of how they could fix those issues?
Well, I mean, the resource system pretty much would have to be revamped. Yeah. I think.
Pretty much, kind of from the ground up.
Yeah, I mean, it don't get me wrong. I think it's a pretty innovative system. It's an interesting system, but I don't think it's as accessible as it could be. So yeah, I think that just needs a complete overhaul, and the rulebook needs to be written by somebody who knows how to play games.
Well, that's not totally fair. I mean, there are just I feel like the rule books are always written by the same 2 or 3 people, and they just kind of fell into that format. That they have a format and they just fill in the blanks, and it just kind of becomes a thing.
And I get that, and there may be some people who think that they're the best written rule books out there, and they learn really well from them. I have never met these people. Everyone that I've ever talked to has always thought that Fantasy Flight's rulebooks are pretty poor.
I've met, again, with the exception of the Eldritch Horror one, which we won't get into at the moment, but is actually far better, but that's a later day.
Yeah, so I think if they rewrote the rulebook, that would at least give them an extra 0.5 in my books.
Yeah. For me, I feel like one of the things I was a little edgy about with this is the way you actually create your units. I kind of like the ability to be able to just create my own units just by maybe spending resources and such. Mm-hmm. And just the fact that you have to have your total resources to specific points on your dial in order to actually create units of certain types. I'm not too fond of that kind of system. I mean, that kind of falls back into the whole resource system as well. So say, for example, I was playing the Elves. And with the Elves, they have this really cool unit that's the Pegasus Rider. But in order for me to make a Pegasus Rider, I would have to have my Ore at least up to 4, and then take the Rally action, or the... Recruit action. Which, as far as creating units goes, that works really well with this system, but I don't know. I'm not sure if that's the most fun way they could have done this. Maybe I want to start this game and I just want to blow all my darn resources and just go double down on Pegasus Riders. I don't have that option, and I mean maybe that just isn't fair. I mean it's probably at some level it's a balance issue. Mm. But I feel like the way in which you generate your units is kind of a shortcoming. As you said, rulebook could be redone. And the resources, which again ties into everything kind of ties into the resources.
Yep.
And when that's a problem, it's very noticeable because everything sort of kind of comes from there.
It's the core of the game, ultimately.
Yeah, I would say so. The way you accumulate resources isn't bad. I don't mind the idea of you being able to go in these certain areas, look at the resources, and then take an action to change your resource dials. I don't feel that is that's a bad system. But the way in which the resource styles are implemented, I don't know. I just feel like something else could have been done here. Like,
Yeah, for
I
sure.
don't know, maybe I just like resource management games, and I just like to be able to just take X trees and X ores and
You
X
just want to have
foods.
5 million wooden bits.
I just want to have 5 million wooden bits, which, I mean, as
Yeah.
far as Fantasy Flight goes, they would just be plastic bits, but it'd be like little plastic trees and little plastic rocks and little plastic chicken legs.
Yeah, most likely.
Most likely.
In any case, that gives us a total of 7.5.
7.5
7.5.
meeples, which is definitely above average.
Yep.
So I would have to say, this is a very good game. It's definitely worth your time. And again, if you've left your opinions about this game all the way to this point, and you're looking for us to sort of help you along with that, I'd say give this a try. If you have a chance, give it a try. I'd say that the runtime for this game is listed at something like 2 hours, but is probably more like 4.
I'd say that's a good estimate. I mean, when we were doing our example turns, we played through a full year, which is potentially about a sixth of a game, and it took us around a half hour.
Yep.
So
This game obviously falls into the trap of the more players you have, the longer the game goes as well. So each player basically adds an amount of time. So simply if we had a third player there, instead of it being a half an hour for one rotation, it would have been probably more like 40 minutes for one rotation.
yeah,
Because you have one more person making decisions and stuff.
yeah, I think 4 hours for a full 4-player game is probably about what you'd be at.
Yeah, and then maybe something more like 2-ish hours for a 2-player game.
Yeah.
Maybe like 2 to 3. But I think that's everything we have to say about Runewars.
Yeah, so join us next time for Loyang, at the Gates of Loyang.
At the Gates of Loyang, which
Yes.
is another Uwe Rosenberg game, which I'm very excited to show off as well. Also, just again as a reminder, by the end of this video, you should totally check out the marathon that's happening the week after this video drops. And again, you can come to this website here, and this might even be something you could click on to go directly to there. But if not, then you should totally go to this, and we'll have something in the notes for you as well. Because we totally want you to come over and hang out with us on the marathon.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Even if you can't donate, it's always great. It makes us feel so wonderful just to have people in chat talking to us and stuff. So that's always a good thing too.
So anyway, see you next time.
Until then, have good games.